Greetings and welcome to Austin, Texas gardening. I'm outside in my front yard here today doing a garden tour showcasing all of the bluebonnets that I've been growing over the past maybe like 18 months now here in Austin, Texas. And so bluebonnets are some of my favorite wildflowers. They're the Texas state flower. And yeah, they're just ornate, really cool wildflowers. I've created this little border here, and I'd originally intended for this to be like a meadow covering my whole front lawn, but I've got a couple of little bluebonnet patches. So let's go around and take a look, and I'll explain some of the process of growing these flowers. It is a beautiful day here in the lovely suburbs of Manor, Texas, northeast of Austin. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about this mini bluebonnet meadow that I've grown. So I'm going to get right to it and explain the process for growing these flowers. It takes about 18 months. It is as simple as buying bluebonnet seeds online and applying them to the soil. Just throwing them into my lawn is how I formed this border. Now, of course, I've done more than that. I fertilize using 13-13-13 fertilizer for these plants. Just going into a little bit about what that means. Those numbers, which you'll see on the sides of fertilizer bags, are referring to the levels of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium in the fertilizer. And so bluebonnets need all three of those to grow. Nitrogen causes them to germinate more quickly, but ultimately they need all three of those balanced elements, really is what they are, to grow well. So there are some challenges, though, that I faced in growing this bluebonnet border. Some of the things growing in here, as you'll notice, if I zoom in here, got a little bit of crabgrass peeking through, and then of course tons of dandelions. And these things are really hard to get rid of because their seeds here mature really quickly. You can see some of those white seeds in there. I'm just gonna stick this in my pocket because I need to pull that whole weed out of here before it allows its seeds to spread further into my bluebonnet meadow. But the cool thing is, once you've seeded this once, it takes about 18 months for these bluebonnets to grow. So when you put the seed down, the seeds don't germinate until a certain amount of erosion has occurred on the outside of the seed. Once that's happened, they'll germinate, they'll grow, and when they come to maturity, they'll form these little seed pods here, and they'll dry up and kind of turn brown, and eventually they'll burst and release their seeds back into the ground, and you'll wind up with bluebonnets in the years to come. It's obvious in my video that I'm surrounded by suburbs, and I do have an HOA. So I tried to be careful in growing this little mini bluebonnet meadow. I didn't want to upset my HOA, but one of the big problems that I faced, as I mentioned earlier, is with weeds. So to see the scope of that problem, we need to go back about 3 weeks. It's another beautiful morning in suburbia. This is my bluebonnet meadow. So one of the problems with it in my front yard here is the saturation of dandelions, weeds, and all sorts of other really interesting things that have totally filled my yard. I'm not in the business of using pre-emergent. That's very obvious. But at this point, I've bought 3-in-1 fertilizer and Bermuda grass seed and dandelion killer because, man, I hate using poison, and I'm gonna keep it away from the fruit trees in the back. But like, yo, I clearly have a dandelion seed problem. And it's not just there. Look at that. I've really got my work cut out for me. Thankfully, the backyard isn't as bad. You can pop up over here and you can see how it is right now. So the backyard's pretty under control, but the front's a real piece of work. Cleaning up all of those dandelions was extremely difficult. Ultimately, as I mentioned earlier, I wound up mowing in between some of my bluebonnet meadow, and so there's just little patches and borders instead of one connected meadow as I had planned. But I really like the way the bluebonnets frame up against my house, and I hope these sweet potato vines fill my front yard gardening space here. So off in the corner, though, the amount of dandelions we accumulated was crazy. I filled up one of my trash bins probably twice with all of these dandelions. Most of them had to be pulled by hand. Some of them that hadn't gone to seed yet I can mow over. But now the yard is just looking a whole lot better, much more presentable. So I don't mind these little patches of bluebonnets, and hopefully we stay dandelion free. Ultimately, creating this bluebonnet meadow was really cool. Bluebonnets are my favorite flower, and the inspiration for this video came from some of the bluebonnet meadows that are in my neighborhood across the way. And so I got a couple of shots last year and also this year of those bluebonnet meadows, and I wanted to share those with you guys. Obviously, you can drive around Austin or really any part of Texas right now and find these bluebonnet meadows filling up both urban and rural spaces. Some of my favorite places that I've gone to take pictures in the bluebonnets with family, or just, take a look at a really cool bluebonnet meadow. I've been over by 360 off of the highway, down by Zilker Park. There's some really cool bluebonnets that usually come out around this time. And Mayfield Park usually has a whole bunch of bluebonnets. So obviously in my neighborhood, these bluebonnets come out, but a lot of people like to post, and I thought it'd be cool to share some of these shots with y'all. So these shots here are actually from 2021, but I also have some shots right here that I filmed on Friday. And so the bluebonnets are out again, but I think they mowed over them a little early last year and killed a whole bunch of the seeds. I noticed there's some really thick meadows here still, but not really the super blue show that we had last year. So that being said, this was a really cool video. I think late March, April is one of the coolest times of year here in the state when we see all these flowers come out, and I'm glad I got to share that with you guys. So thank you again for watching Austin, Texas Gardening.